So, as has been presented by the first presenter, Andreas, I would like to continue. But before I come to the major point which I would like to become a part of discussion, just let me share the situation, the particular nexus that the world is looking towards. Now, let me remind two incidents that have happened in the recent past. The first is the beheading of 47-year-old Parisian school teacher Samuel Paty by an 18-year-old Abdullah Khanzarov, which was fallout of a free speech debate in France around Charlie Hebdo cartoon issue. And Turkey's President Erdogan, he took the opportunity once again, as he has been doing earlier also, to place himself as the protector of Islamic faith, Islamic people, and the Islamic world. He criticized Emmanuel Macron for making anti-Islam statements and called for a boycott of France products, and France economy. Now, the moment he took to national TV to announce this boycott, we could easily see three different kinds of fallouts that have happened. The first is that the divide between Turkey and France expanded. It was already there, but it expanded. It must have expanded. Second, Turkey's division with European states, which were already visible during the Mediterranean issue, they expanded. And many countries of Europe also, including India, came out very harshly criticizing Erdogan's statement against Emmanuel Macron, also the tone in which that criticism was made. And the third thing which we all are looking today is the alliance that was forming. The alliance between Turkey, Iran, and Pakistan came to light, and to some extent, the role of China was also very visible. Now, this nexus that Turkey is trying to forge, that is between Iran, is a kind of a nexus where Islam is being used as a force multiplier and a way through which Erdogan can project himself as a protector of the faith and the Muslim community, and at the same time he is trying to downsize the traditional religious power centers in Saudi Arabia as ones that failing both the religion and its people. Now, the major harm to Turkey that I see in this is that it's kind of losing Western allies. Now, the second incident is United Nations General Assembly, where in 2019, where Erdogan broached the revocation of Article 370 of the Indian Constitution and urged the international community to, pay attention to what is happening in Kashmir. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi probably responded to Erdogan's speech by meeting with the leaders of Greece, Armenia, and Cyprus in the same conference, who are the rivals of Turkey in the region. He also cancelled a scheduled trip to Turkey in November 2019 and put on hold about 2.3 billion worth naval deal with a Turkish company that was meant to reduce the trade imbalance between New Delhi and Turkey. And on the other hand, it is known that he signed a defense agreement with Armenia, Turkey's neighboring enemy, worth $40 million. Now, let us look at a bigger picture. See, Turkey's continuous attempts at different incidents that are happening in that particular region are drifting Turkey away from America and Europe. Now, but still, we all know that Turkey is part of the Western Alliance, and it cannot actually take itself totally away from this Western Alliance because it's not in its interest. Definitely, it's not also in the interest of America looking at their defense arrangements. But when the time comes for this superpower rivalry to come to the forefront, that is the rivalry between America and China, and when Turkey has to take sides, then as of now, I see that Turkey cannot avoid not to be at the side of America. And when it is there, it will find India also there. Whereas Pakistan will not follow Turkey. It appears from the present situation that Pakistan will not be able to follow Turkey, but will continue to remain allied with China, under whose economic debt Pakistan is at the moment. So this is the situation that Turkey needs to consider. Another thing is that as far as India is concerned, we have solved the Kashmir issue. So any attempt of radicalization by rented Turks in Kashmir will not go unresponded by the Indian government as well as by the people of this country. So this attitude of the government and of the people of India also has to be taken into consideration by the government in Turkey. Now, another interesting thing is that despite this coming together of many Islamic countries on many issues and they being allies of China, the fact uh, uh, the fact that Turkey, Iran, and Pakistan are not taking China directly on the cultural onslaught and the ethnic cleansing of Uyghur Muslims that is happening. And there is quite very we all of us very apprehensive that these the Uyghur Muslims are facing the most destitute of scenarios today, as China is not only targeting them at home, but they are also targeting them abroad. Now let us come to the point that I want to bring into discussion, and that is Indo-Greece cooperation. Uh, See, there are military ties, and we both of us, India and Greece, are working. We have agreed to work on the defense sector and promote cooperation between the defense industries of the two countries. The boost in this military ties between Greece and India comes at a time when Pakistan continues provocation in the East Mediterranean on behalf of Turkey, and also at the time when, shockingly, Turkey is providing nuclear missile technology to Pakistan. So the military ties are still continuing, and they will continue. As far as economic relations are concerned, we know that uh, there is an impetus from the government to do more business with Greece, but I see a better alliance with between France, Greece, and India, because we have been sharing trade and innovation inputs with each other for a long time, and this is how a better business environment is supposed to be built, not only with Greece but also within Europe. Now, I would like to draw the attention of this gathering to an area which needs more attention than it is getting now, and that is strengthening cultural ties with Greece. See, the ties already exist. There is there is a need to be to restate and reiterate these ties from different platforms, be it from cultural platforms, be it from the platforms of the government or from people themselves. Now, why do I say this? In the midst of this these talks of military and strategic ties, why I am bringing this cultural factor into it, because cooperation between any two countries depend not only on defense alliances or military alliances or economic ties or even alliances forged during crisis, but they largely depend upon uh, people of those countries know about each other, what people of those countries feel about each other, and that is to say that it depends upon people to people interaction. It also depends upon people to people dialogue, and this goes a long way in cementing the base on which the economic and military ties will be built in the future. Uh, uh, and this is what Sri Ramnath Kovind, the Honorable President of India, meant when during his state visit to Greece in 2018, when he said that Greece and India have much in common. We are modern states, nation states built on the foundations of ancient civilizations. Vasudev Kutumbakam is a timeless Sanskrit phrase that translates to the world is a family. And as sister civilizations from the earliest days of human society, Greece and India are special members of this family. And he very rightly said that, the most important attribute that two countries we share is the commonality in values. The city of Athens is regarded as a cradle of democracy. And in ancient India too, there was a tradition of city republics such as Lichavi Republic in the modern Bihar. And the values of liberal democracy, popular sovereignty, and transparent government, they continue to guide us and are cornerstone of India's relationship with Greece and with the European Union. So ours is a partnership of principles. And very importantly, what he said was, it is much more than a transaction. It is a friendship. It has been tested by time and by cherished beliefs. So this is what needs to be taken forward. And for this, from my point of view, I strongly propose that there is a need to increase cultural exchanges between these two countries. Research collaborations should be initiated. Ancient Greek literature should be translated and taught in Indian universities. Student-faculty exchanges should increase. Centers like Chanakya Studies Center or Panini Research Center or Vivekanand Youth Fellowship should be started. Similarly, chairs on Socrates, Plato, Aristotle needs to be initiated. And as we all must be knowing that there is a very famous peripatetic philosophical tradition in Greece. And this was a school of philosophy in Greece founded by Aristotle. So the teachings of that school need to be translated. Ancient Sanskrit texts which mentions about Yavanas also need to be translated. I know I might sound a bit like a bit strange and philosophical talking about cultural exchanges in the midst of a military exchange between a strategic nexus that is taking place in our neighborhood. But what I'm talking about will go a long way even if we have to forge a strategic alliance with Greece or with the European country. Thank you.